And hello, everybody. This is Todd Nielsen, one of the volunteers for the Catalyzing the Future series of events, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Whit Raymond. Hello, Whit. How are you?
Hello, Todd, and hello, everybody. Great to be here.
We're so glad you could join us. If you're tuning in on the live stream, if you're catching this on the replay, welcome. We hope you find a lot of value and interest and inspiration today. This is part 2 of the Pro Bono Symposium that we're holding today, December 9th. As part of Catalyzing the Future, the theme of both this morning's conversation and this afternoon's conversation is reflection and foresight. And if this morning's conversation was any indication, we're going to have an amazing time this afternoon. We have 2 guests that are going to be back with us again, but then all other new faces. And looking forward to everybody's insights and wisdom and ideas, going forward. If you haven't tuned into any Catalyzing the Future events before, the purpose of these is 2020 has obviously been a year of great change, complexity, uncertainty, risk, worry, anxiety, all of the above, and the reason we're trying to pull together these conversations is to create, or if you will, catalyze some better ideas for moving forward in the future. How do we plan better futures for ourselves, for our families, for the companies we work for? How do we plan better for the planet overall? And so I'm excited to be a part of and convening some of these conversations. We call them an ecosystem of conversations, and I'm eager to get started. So, Whit, how about if I bring in the other panelists and we?
Yeah, that sounds great. That's great. Thanks, Todd. Yeah, perfect.
Excellent. I'm just going to start bringing folks in no particular order here. But, welcome. All right, I think I've got everybody here. Hi guys, great to see you. Very excited to have this group here today. So coming back from this morning, our 2 individuals are Sally Avian, who's one of the co-authors of Power Moms 3.0, which is a book about women owning their power, confident women with invisible strengths, persevere, overcome, win, and restore. So I'm really glad that she's able to come back. She had some wonderful insights this morning. Arceli is very much about our invisible strengths and I suppose making them visible. So good to see you again, Arceli. We also have Alan Camus coming back this morning. He's a leader, practitioner with boots on the ground experience of working with organizations. He, as always, is very adept at offering the perspective of reality, and really brings deep insights from great experience in the workplace and helping organizations become more agile, more resilient over time. In addition, we have a couple of additional people here who are wonderful as well. Kineta Lewis Harrison, another author from Power Moms, who's about stepping out of your comfort zone. Eureka Turner-Patton, another Power Mom author, who's about confidence, being a confident woman. And then also Rike Pätzold, who is an expert in navigating uncertainty and talking about how we can be better able to deal with these times in which we find ourselves. Geary Sikich, who's about managing risk and uncertainty. He's written a number of really good books and a lot of good thinking and writing about the pandemic. And finally, Charlotte Weinberg, who is another much needed dose of reality, and who does a lot of good works within the prison system, so within the UK, as my understanding. Full apologies if I've murdered anybody's names or have done short shrift to any of your extensive and impressive backgrounds. I am just so grateful to see you all here, and why don't we jump in? You want to lead us off with sort of
yeah, yeah. So for those of you who are here this morning, this is a repeat, but I would like you to think a little bit more, to add to some things that may be relevant. So one of the things we thought is we take half this time that we've got here right now and spend it on reflection, and the next one is the Foresight, looking into 2021. And as we know, we wanted to look a little bit about some of the lessons, insights. So as a way to get started, and because we want to be in the conversational, is first to think about a word or a phrase that you think captures for you what 2020 was about in terms of lessons, insights, or experience. And we can start with anybody. If you don't dive in, I'm going to call on individuals, but we'll keep this going. Anybody want to start this off?
I'll start it off.
I knew you were there, Eureka. I knew you were going to do that. I thought you were ready.
The word that I would choose for 2020 is transition. There was a lot of transitioning going on in 2020. But also with that transition, it produces growth. So even though we were going through a lot of transition, I believe there's going to be a lot of growth out of it in the end.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so I continue.
Thank you, Rike.
So I think one of the many, many words that came to mind was emergence. So the idea of emergence, that we are so much less in control than we thought we were, that many of us thought we were. And that like the idea of emergence, that if people, for example, in this way to see it, if people come together at the right time, in the right circumstances, something can emerge, something new can come into the world. And it's not so much about controlling that, but fostering conditions for emergence and behave with integrity and hope that others do the same. And so, yeah, for me, it's emergence, definitely.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. I think for 2020, I also like to say that it's been impactful. And by impactful, I mean as well as how you manifest to change within 2020. And every interaction that you have or you're having with people or you're giving to people has been impactful, and impactful in many changing ways. So it's like, how are you giving off that energy and how are you receiving that energy? Things from conversations can be impactful. Participating in this panel has been impactful. It's going to impact others. It's impacting my life personally. Going through the crisis has impacted our lives and pushed us into change. And so I like to look back and think on, how have I been an impact in my world and in others? And has it been in a positive way? And have you been able to carry others and strengthen others and put that positive life into others as well? So 2020 has not only adversely impacted us in so many ways, but it has also brought positivity impact on us as well.
Okay. No rush here.
I'll go then, because we got an email telling us this is one of the tasks to sum 2020 up in a word, and I thought, oh, I can't. Who could do that? And this afternoon I thought about it, and I came up, actually my word for 2020 is protest. And it struck me that, you know, if this is the planet's protest, then it kind of seems like quite a good one. That so many of us have been in protests during this year in so many ways for so many reasons, and that I myself find myself protesting quite often in different ways for different reasons, with different effects and impact, as Araceli was talking about. So and I think the value of protest in and of itself, you know, the old management, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. Well, actually, I haven't always got a solution, but the problem is valid, it is necessary, you need to listen to it, and we need to consider what it is. That has a value in its own right.
Yeah, very powerful. Yeah. Good. Geary?
Denial and herd stupidity.
And say more.
Denial, because we deny so many issues and discount so many issues, and herd stupidity because we don't seem to be, even as smart as many of us are, able to overcome stupidity when it comes to dealing with things like the current situation of pandemic. So, for instance, why be stupid? Why go to the airport and fly out? You're being stupid, even though you've got a PhD. So exhibiting itself in so many ways, and we're now seeing the effects. There was a LinkedIn post today that I found interesting. It had the top 10 American death tolls, and the top 3 were, I mean, it was like Antietam, September 11th, and I can't remember the third one, but from 4 through 7 was all December COVID deaths. So if you can find the posting on LinkedIn, and I did download the little graphic that they had. It's very fascinating because the deaths in September by week, superseding the week prior, also supersede Pearl Harbor, which surprised me, because you start seeing this, and the projections I'm getting from people are beyond dismal. Doctors saying we're going to look at 3,000 to 4,000 deaths a day. So if we don't get smart about things, we'll be inclined, instead of getting herd immunity, to be suffering with herd stupidity.
Okay. Thank you, Geary. Kineta,
sorry.
You want to add something? No, this is good. This is great. I just want to get out, and then we can get into some more discussion and respond to each other. This is great. Kineta, do you want to add something there?
I did. I was hoping my sound was okay. It sounds a little grainy on my end.
Okay.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to share was the unyieldness of this year. Being an unyielding year, I would say being hard and solid. I'm in the death care industry, and as an essential worker, I have not been able to just pause and be still. When the world was able to stop, we had to keep going. And in my book, in the book of Power Moms, I talk a little bit about being out of your comfort zone. And I have been challenged in actually living that this year, and helping families who have a loss in the middle of a pandemic. It can really be exhausting, because you have to show up in spite of everything else, around you being able to quarantine. We're having to face the realities of what this year has brought on. And what I would say to anyone in this moment of experiencing this unyielding effect of it is embrace it and find ways to adapt to it, which is what we've been able to do in serving and helping others, being able to create a space that's different from the norm, but has created an option that would still allow you to do what we're all going to have to do one day, which is to memorialize the people we love. So it's a different perspective coming from someone in the funeral industry, but I do believe it's a perspective we can all embrace.
That's great. Thank you. Alan, you want to add anything?
I'll go if, yeah. A word I've been thinking about a little bit since this morning is the word importance. And in the context of those things that were important to me maybe a year ago, or, not a year ago, I guess, those things that were important to me that now have no importance whatsoever in my life. It could be totally insignificant, irrelevant. It just popped in my mind. I don't know why, But as I was listening to you guys, just the concept even of eating out for dinner, it's not even anything I even think about today. I don't desire it. I don't think about it. I don't even feel that I miss it. It's just kind of operating differently. I think some of this has to do with where you live and the different lockdowns that have happened in your own communities. Change the perception, but it's just interesting to think about what our priorities are, have they become, and and those things that are important to us. And I suspect everybody has some list of changed items. It'd be hard not to, I guess.
Can't wait to go out for dinner, man. I can't wait to go for a Chinese meal in Chinatown. Oh my God, Ellen!
Right. It's funny how you say the things that we're paying more attention to. You made me think of the word mindfulness, and I didn't think of that before. But I think a lot of us are so much more mindful of the small things that we do, from going down the street to taking our trash, to pumping our gas, to going to the grocery store. I don't think that prior to 2020 and the crisis of 2020, I don't think that we put that much thought into moving forward. Like, do we have our mask in the car? Do we have alcohol wipes? Afraid to touch your face. When your face itches, you won't desire to actually scratch it because you're afraid you're going to have germs. I mean, the mindfulness that and the interactions that you have with people, you're just right. You made me think of that, Alan. Like, we are so mindful of the things that we're doing now in 2020.
I guess I would tag on to that. I think the word that I was struggling with a little bit to articulate, and I maybe comes close to this, is austerity from 2020, and maybe trying to find our joy or our peace within that. We've been narrow cast into tools, into lifestyles that have forced us to economize and push ourselves. And I think those kinds of things are character forming, but they're also really hard to do. And and when I talk about sort of finding joy in that austerity, just things that I wouldn't have necessarily thought much about before. Like I've derived a great deal of enjoyment since the pandemic started with just feeding the birds in my backyard, and just something simple and good like that you feel that you're doing something good for something else. You're doing something that's not taking a great deal of resources, but it's feeding you in some way as well. I think that's really was an important lesson, at least for me personally, in 2020, as I thought about it.
I'm going to add just, I didn't think of this before this, it just comes up, but I realized in the last many months that I think about the importance that I've been saying that I need to have patience. And what I mean by that is that I've had to observe, and I've noticed a lot of reactivity, whether it be locally around where I am, or is it what I'm picking up that's coming through the airwaves, the media. And I keep thinking about, well, how do I not react, or take my reactions and figure out how I want to respond in a thoughtful way. And I just even noticed in the conversations with the people in my area when I would talk to them, and some are very strong reacting, I just go, wait, you got to listen. You got to watch, you got to listen. And it's really hard because I hear stuff that's just crazy, and I go, don't get attached to the content right now. I've got to figure out where this person is, what's going on here. And I'll tell you, sometimes it's not easy, but it's a part of where my edge is. It's where I'm learning, because there's so much going on around all of us. So I'm just curious, if you have other reactions. Rike, were you gonna say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted.
No, that's fine, please.
I muted myself. It resonates, like what both of you said resonates a lot. So first I'd like to respond to what Todd said. I think one other word what comes to mind is perspective. Like put things in a different perspective. The things that were so normal before are not normal anymore. Like the going dancing, the hugging people, the just being with people. And on the other hand, the stuff that they were so significant things that right now they're not really significant anymore. they don't seem to be that significant anymore. Like the traveling for jobs and the busyness, and that leads me to what you said about. For me, it's like being in that liminal space, to learn how to be in that liminal space, to hold that space, because we're so used to, we have a problem, we find a solution, we jump from one certainty to the next. But at the same time, maybe there's something very, very valuable in that liminal space that can't show itself if we don't stay with that feeling maybe, or with that situation, and just be there. And we're not used to that at all. And I catch myself all the time, and I'm trying to, jump over this gap of uncertainty and just, know the answer. But there's so much valuable information in that liminal space.
That's great. What else are you, rest of you, hearing? Just in general, what are you hearing?
Can I just say something? That's just made me think about, and it's not a full thought, so forgive me, but when Todd introduced me, he said that I work in an organisation that works in prisons. So obviously I think about prison a lot. Actually, what Rike was just talking about is kind of what we force people into when we use prison as a response to harm. So prison kind of isolates, separates, withdraws, removes, denies, rejects people that have committed often horrific harm to others. But when it happens to us, we find it extremely difficult, because it's supposed to be a condition that we use as a punishment. And although for many people, myself, I love my flat, I live in a really nice place that I feel warm and comfortable, I can get food, etc., etc. This is not lockdown. Quarantine and lockdown are separate things, but I think kind of listening to all of this is making me think about how the unincarcerated of us, in different ways, have experienced a level of punishment that we inflict on others as the kind of best system we've been able to create. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but it's kind of, we wouldn't wish this on ourselves, and yet we have it at the fundamental bottom of our so-called justice systems. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Right. And then I like how we talked about perspective. And I think just looking at the perspective, I want to mention something Geary mentioned earlier. He was like, why are people getting on the planes? Stop it, get off. And then in a different perspective would be, I'm a senior leader in the airline industry. And so we want to ensure that people can fly as safely as possible, because you want people to continue flying, because you know that if this industry does go down, then now you're impacting thousands and thousands of more lives in terms of now, what are they going to do to feed their families? What are they going to do to put food on the table? And how does that reach? And so it's kind of like perspective, but I also, from a business perspective, we want people to feel safe flying. You want people to continue doing this action. But then from a personal perspective, it's like, am I saving lives? I'm going to work every day, putting myself at risk just so people can fly. And so I think you're looking at different perspectives, and 2020 has also forced us to look at the coin on both sides. How is it impacting you, and how is it impacting others?
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing point, right? And when I look out, kind of what's been going on for the last number of months, and you see different realms of behavior. Some, the incredibly judgmental people who just snap to why you should or shouldn't be doing something without recognizing that person's reality might not be your reality. Maybe they are in that store because they must put food on their table. And you don't maybe have that same crisis in your life, so you can choose to not go out or what have you. And I think it kind of goes a little beyond empathy, but really understanding why we're doing what we're doing. And then from a commerce perspective, looking to different businesses, and I love this particular phrase, which is, you can do well by doing good, right? So those business leaders who are choosing to do good, do the right thing, make the right decisions for society, for the communities. And I don't know, is it at the expense of some revenue? Maybe short term. I'd argue that long term definitely is not, right? They will absolutely come out on top. But it's that ability to share these different perspectives and understand that maybe it's just not so easy to say, nobody can fly anywhere. And if the reality is maybe some people do need to travel, then how's the right way of doing it? And so I like that. I like that line of thinking.
Yeah.
It's great.
I like
Eureka?
Let me
Okay.
one thing. I didn't say don't fly. I said we're being stupid about how we go about flying. I'm not worried about the airline's survival as I'm worried about the spread of contagion by grouping together people. By the way, airplanes are kind of noted as being one of the safer modes because of the way they filter the air and whatnot. It's not that aspect. It is the aspect of getting a bunch of people together, as we see in Chicago and other places, with underground parties of 300 and 400 people with no masks, and then suddenly a bunch of COVID people getting sick. The problem we have with denial and herd stupidity is people go out, figure they can do it whenever they want, party, enjoy, get together, hug, kiss, do whatever else. And if I get sick, the system's got to take care of me. So we are in denial with regards to self responsibility, if you will. Not that we shouldn't protect industries, not that we shouldn't try to keep things going, but people have to become much more astute, smart about how they go about doing this stuff.
Right.
Wearing a mask is not
Totally
a bad
agree.
thing.
Totally.
Unless you're really like a macho person and you don't have to wear a mask because you're never going to have a problem. But it's like, how many people? I mean, you see them. I ain't wearing a mask. It's stupid. It's not stupid. Stupid.
Well, it's interesting.
A lot of this stuff is
that whole world of why are you doing it, right? But I love the debate on these topics where people with no scientific kind of knowledge in education, get into this deep debate of why they should or shouldn't wear a mask. I just find it entertaining to hear some of it. But I think the interesting perspective is if more of us were able to have a perspective of I'm doing something because it's the right thing to do by you, as opposed to whether I feel I need to do it, right? So, I might feel, I'll never catch it, or I don't have it, or everything I feel I know about it. But am I able to say none of that matters? What matters is my obligation to you as a member of my community. And I think just too many people just don't seem to have the ability to look anywhere beyond just their individual desires and needs.
Yeah.
Just one word about that comes to mind is to be maybe more thoughtful, to not know, but to be more thoughtful and considerate. Not even the smartness of it, but the wisdom and the thoughtfulness.
But I think
Kineta, you want to say something?
I wanted to interject there. Those are all great perspectives. I love what, the perspective from Araceli, that these are people who work in the air industry. I love Gary's perspective, but I want to live, right? And, like Alan said, some people just don't want to wear masks. And I love what Rike said about being compassionate. In referencing those things, what comes to mind for me is the fact that loss of life is one loss. But what about the losses of jobs, relationships, tangible things that we love, peace of mind, the freedom to roam? Loss is real and it causes grief, no matter the loss. We don't understand that just because a person passes away and you experience grief, Does that mean that if we lose something that's dear to us because of this pandemic and the challenges of 2020, that we won't experience grief? And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross speaks about the different stages of that, from being in denial and disbelief to having anger and distraughtment, and showing those emotions both emotionally and physically. Because when we grieve, our physical bodies are affected. So when I think about what everyone has stated, from my perspective, I would say to understand that all of us this year have experienced a loss.
Yeah.
Loss of life, yes, some families have gone through that. Loss of tangible things. People I know personally have lost income to the point that they have lost their dwelling places. They have lost their mode of transportation. There's been great loss. The loss of social interaction, human touch. You know, when families come to my location, I'm used to walking up to them and hugging them, embracing them. That's a loss, because now we can't do that because of COVID. A lot of loss has taken place. So how do we move forward through this and find a way to overcome the burden of the loss and the grief that follows it?
That's great. Very, very good point. Eureka, do you want to add something?
Give a little applause.
What's Eureka first?
Yes, I was going to say as well, I'm a owner of a Massage Envy, and that's also an industry that has been impacted with COVID. However, we're still open. We still have clients and guests coming to our location. And a lot of it is just not out of relaxation. A lot of it is just that people need these services just to get through their day. Some of it can be stress related. Some of it is just your ordinary aches and pains that you deal with every day. But we still seeing our guests and members on a day-to-day basis, and they're coming in, and of course we're having to do business a lot different than we did prior to COVID, because there's so many different things that we had to put in place. It's basically costing you more money to do business because you have to have all these different COVID protocols in place just in order to do your business. But it's just not about somebody just coming to have a relaxing massage. Yes, sometimes that's the case, but most of the times is medically induced.
I can feel like we could dive on so many of these, and we're just scratching the surface. But I'm also aware that we're now, we've got about 25 more minutes, and I think we've been looking in the past. I think we've got some elements of this. Let's move now to looking ahead in terms of what is something that you want to bring into, manifest, to bring out. What is a lesson or a word or phrase for the foresight for moving forward? What are your thoughts there?
Well, picking up on what also Eureka just said, and again, also Kineta, about the grief and the loss. I guess one thing we might be able to learn for the future is there are things that unite us, like this experience of grief and the experience of loss, and all these opinions that separate us, like what's right, what's wrong, what measurements, corona avoiding measurements, does not matter that much, but we have these experiences that we have in common. And one word, a beautiful word I came across recently, and I thought about that today when the question came up, was the verb coddywomple. I'm not a native speaker of English, and I think it's quite a wacky verb, but it apparently means to travel purposefully towards a yet unknown destination. And that was something that came to mind when I thought about 2021. So maybe not optimistic, but hopeful.
And intentional, it sounds like. Yeah. How about for others?
I would say that 2021 is going to be like a pressure cooker with the relief valve stuck closed. There are so many expectations for the quick fix of the vaccine The reality being that it's not a quick fix. It's going to take a long time. And we've got a lot of pressure building up within society on a number of fronts. I think you all pointed out these. So I'd say that, and take this in two ways. Pressure cooker with a relief valve stuck closed could mean really big disaster. Or it can mean when that relief valve is opened, that there's a huge amount of growth as a result. So there's positives with that, along with the caution that we need to be kind of couched in the reality of the situation. Yes, vaccines exist. No, you're probably not going to see one for a long time.
So what's your perspective, Gary, then how you would position yourself to dealing with that situation? What do you find as a lesson for you in terms of how to cope?
Learn to live
how to
within,
grow, thrive.
Yeah, learn to live within yourself and appreciate every moment that you can spend doing something by yourself or within the social distance community that you have. So it's really a matter of realizing you have a lot of potential to balance within yourself this situation. There are so many things you can do that offset and reduce a lot of the stress without having to leave your home. And I understand the issue of this. We are very social people. We're touchy-feely. It's hard. But the reality is that if we don't do this is going to go on potentially a lot longer. And the results could be even more devastating because you've got huge populations, India, China, the continent of Africa, South America, that really are so far behind us in their ability to logistically deal with things that it becomes that pressure cooker building, and the explosion then is not a pleasant explosion, or relief, if you will.
Right. I want to piggyback off of Gary, if you'll okay that. Good words, Gary. What I want to share for me for 2021 would be adaptive. You have to be adaptive to the change, because one of the things I will say, just this environment, I wouldn't be here in this moment had it not been for COVID. And that's honest word. So gathering in spaces like we are today, we're adapting, creating Facebook Live memorial services for all of the people who want to be there but can't. That's adapting. Changing out our space. Want to say farewell, adapting to that. So I would say for me, going into the new year, as we adapt, I believe that we will find ways to create what we desire in our hearts, just in a different way. Yeah. Making that change, being the change, and then showing others how we can find that light within us, right? To share with the world. Each one can reach one, just in a different way. So I do believe that as we adapt and move forward, we will find ways to connect and still be social and do it within distance. Yeah.
It's wonderful. Wonderful.
I had a thought that I wanted to add to Geary as well, and it was that what you said, Kineta, hit me very powerfully as well. I lost my father this year, and was, I think, maybe one of the early people to have to do an online memorial service with family. It was very difficult and bittersweet, to have to say goodbye in that way. And we absolutely have a lot to adapt to when something like that happens. Something you said, Geary, kind of struck me, the learning to live within yourself, and I agree. I mean, I think we need to kind of take care of ourselves first so that we can minister to others, I think, is part of this. And I've been, however you want to choose the word, but I think we're all relatively well off, and we have a house, a roof over our heads, and we've got food in our bellies. We're privileged class. Those of us who are participating here, and taking that into account, and the fact that we are, to one degree or another, all of us paid to be thinkers and offer ideas and inspiration to others. We have a shamanic or a ministerial responsibility to others, and how, so for me, maybe that word going forward into 2021 is responsibility. How do we help alleviate the pressure in that pressure cooker? Is there anything or effect that we can have through our messages and the things we say and do? Anyways, that was my thought.
One of the strategies we start with when we're with a family, especially when experiencing a loss, we talk about the happy moments. We talk about the things that brought life, that brought joy, that brought the beautiful memories. So one of the first strategies that I offer to anyone who's experienced loss is find moments of gratitude, moments that brought joy. What brought joy to them? What brought joy to you during the time that you spent? What did they love? What were the things that were their favorites, right? So if we were to keep like a gratitude journal, or just to pause and think of the things we are grateful for, I believe it opens up an opportunity for us to heal the hurt that may be caused from the loss. I've seen families go from weeping to laughter because of memories shared in those happy moments. So I believe having minutes of gratitude, that you spend a day just saying, I'm grateful for this, and list those things. Share them with someone else. By you sharing what you're grateful for, it's like paying it forward. They would think about what they're grateful for, and then the next person. So a first step that I would share would be, count our blessings. Think about the things we're grateful for and share it with others so that they can take that, pay it forward, and someone else can be impacted by it.
Can I jump in then? Because I've been thinking about this since I don't know if it was Gary, I can't remember, but for a while it's been on my mind about, I think Gary was talking about, there's people who aren't prepared to wear a mask and herd stupidity, all of that line of thought, which, I don't necessarily disagree with all of it, but while you were saying it, I was really thinking about this. When you've got a president who won't wear a mask, it's difficult to then think about any other young people or community members who want, in leadership and in terms of governance and decision making and modelling, and what Alan was talking about, doing the right thing, and Kineta talking about finding joy. I think I find joy in my integrity, in really considering what am I doing, what am I saying, how coherent am I being, and what am I asking of other people. The scientist tells me, listen, you're the boss, right? And right about now, we need people to be wearing a mask. I'm going to wear a mask, regardless of what I think about that in my personal life. And I might talk to the scientists behind closed doors and say, this is ridiculous. But on television, I'm wearing the mask because that's my job. You know what I mean? And then I can find joy in the fact that that was really uncomfortable. I hated it. I'm not sure what I think about it, but it's what I had to do. And I guess those, the value of our values is really going to be the bottom line going forward, because I think personally, things are going to get worse in lots of ways for lots of people. Guaranteed. And actually,
Charlie, you're making me really think about, again, the fact that we all come from and create different realities that lead us to, am I really thinking about myself, or am I thinking about others? And what's really hard is if I'm with somebody who has a different reality, they see the world differently, or they have a different attitude, or whatever you want to call it. It's how do you build common ground around that? And when you're also, there seems to be so much at risk. Right. And then, of course, the other reality is there's nothing at risk. We don't have to worry about anything. This is all made up.
Right. I like what Charlie said in how you're going to handle your situations personally. So I think 2020 versus going into 2021, I think it's a lot about a control aspect. So I think a lot of us felt like at some moment you lost control in 2020. So in 2021, I would want to go into 2021 thinking as a masterful mindset, meaning you're self-willed in how you're going to control things within yourself. So, and how you're going to lead yourself in that direction, because at some point, like Charlie said, well, even if you have your own personal mindset, you know it's right and that's the direction you're going to go. So you can only control in some cases how you react, how you're going to move forward, and what purpose you're going to have to impact on others. So going to 2021, I think if we all have that masterful mindset among ourselves, is going to help us lead ourselves and others in a strong foot forward.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, really good point. Really good point. Charlie, you want to say? Gary, you want to say something? Are you trying to tell us that you want to say something? It sounds like you want to say something.
No, I was just at the point where I think one of the other aspects, and I'll use that little demonstration of my mask, be innovative. One of the things we need to look at is to innovate. I mean, $10 on Amazon, and it's worth every penny because it gets people thinking, and it's a comedic relief instead of a tension situation of, focusing on you're not wearing a mask. It's like, hey, look at this. And you would be surprised how much people change their mental attitude as you begin to offer them things that are what I'll call stupidly innovative. It's like, this is funny. So, okay, that's kind of cool. Well, then I'll come up with something I can wear. So, the diversity of masks, you could actually have mask competitions, which are really kind of fun. But it's this kind of process of reducing, as I said, the pressure cooker, get the valve to release. So it reduces some things. Today, and I think it's going to be a situation, if we don't address it soon, that we will see a lot more violence in the world as we have it. There's so much tension, so much pressure. You mentioned people losing their jobs, people losing their livelihoods. What does that do? Get in your car, you're all shook up. You got somebody who's driving the speed limit, and you're just saying, "Get out of my way." And what happens? You then suddenly get in a confrontation. And I say, I live outside of Chicago. We're seeing some of the most insane things on the expressways. Shootings for no reason. Carjackings for, what purpose? It begins to really get to where you start looking at things and saying, society is at a verge point. We could see significant disruptive collapse in many ways.
It's true.
So
and then I'm going
to
do this. Yeah. So in that context, though, is there's things that we can do, should do, want to do, to make a difference for ourselves and for others.
I think that there are things collectively that we can do as voters in our countries, and I think that there's a lot of things that we can urge government to do, because government has been, for whatever reason, and I'll pick the United States because I'm here, stupid about a lot of what they're doing. And I say stupid about a lot of what they're doing. They're not actively, proactively finding ways to help the situation. The latest bill that's going forward, no checks for people. That check, that relief check, meant something to people, and it took some of the tension out of things. So when we look at, how would I put it, the government leaders, and not just the Trump administration, I'm just going to say in general government, I equate where we're at in the States to somewhat like the Roman Empire was towards the end, where they sent the army out to fight for them, but said, we can't pay you. And people in the army said, well, you know what? We can't fight for you. And it's the way I see our society deteriorating into that type. Government leaders don't have a clue about what the common person's going through, no matter how much they like to get out there in public and say, oh, yes, I feel for you. Baloney. They go home to, a very well-to-do life. I mean, better than sitting here today combined.
Right. I would like to add something we could do.
Yeah, interesting, Gary, that comment you make, because what I think about is, I mean, this is a fundamental challenge within society and business and everything. Is as a leader, are you able to maintain some sense of awareness of the life of others, within your organization, and I think about, in the business context, having to close offices and having everybody work remote has dramatically changed the dynamic of some degree of equity and fairness in organizations, right? At some level, the reality of, if you worked in headquarters, you had more opportunity. If you were able to get into work early, you had more opportunity, but that's now been leveled. Everybody's on the phone or a video. Everybody, has kids or a dog or whatever making noise. You're no longer ostracized because you have some family challenges. The question is, will that all go away when we reach some new place, right? Some place where we're able to work more, kind of how we used to. Will it all be forgotten, and we'll go back to the hierarchies and the material and the corporate headquarters, or will somehow we be able to preserve it and preserve some of the, maybe not great, but some of the movement towards better equities?
Okay.
I think that you're going to see the situation evolve where we quickly forget some things, like we do normally. So, for instance, 2010 with the swine flu, the threat from bird flu back in 2008, all this buildup and nothing was carried forward, which is sort of why we're in the position we're in right now. I do feel, though, that there are going to be some innovative things that organizations have done, and whether it's remote working or, there's going to be some enhancements to those areas that will become more of the mainstream for businesses. And as a result, we're going to see some really big changes in how operations are moving forward in the future, which could be very good because it could actually provide a lot of environmental positives, a lot of challenges from the standpoint of cybersecurity and things like that. So the ability to actually build off what we're experiencing has great potential. I just hope that people don't go back to using well, we had an earthquake. Okay, well, can you fix the house? Yeah, okay, it's good enough. Don't worry about it. There's not going to happen again. And
right,
we're seeing too much of that.
Yeah. So, Kineta, go ahead. You were going to add something more.
I was going to say, good point. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things I wrote, my journal was what we once knew may one day be no more. I mean, that's just facts. I mean, we have to adapt to a new norm and find a way to survive in it. I look at my team, and one of the things I realize is one of my leaders always say, keep your finger on the pulse, which means you got to stay connected to people, even though you're not connected. How do we do that? By what we're doing today, creating spaces to be able to still stay connected to people, knowing what their needs are. How do we meet that need? What can we do I know the government affects a lot of this, but I'm my own government in my household. I set the standard of how my family lives and how we treat others and how my team operates and how we conduct business with integrity, with compassion, with love, in spite of loss, right? We have to face death every day. Who wants to do that? But the joy you find is helping people. So, I talked earlier about gratitude. What my next phase would be, as a matter of fact, in my blog, I would say give. Find someone to help. Give to them.
Yeah,
whether it's knowledge-based, advice you can give, donations you can give. This is the time of the year before we talk about leadership and those that have and then those who don't. Find someone you can take a family, sponsor them. Our location, we just did a blanket drive for the homeless, gave away tons of blankets. We did a coat drive. Now we're doing a toy drive. We sponsored a family for Christmas. Find ways to give back to those who are hurting, who have experienced a loss. Keep your finger on the pulse, know those experiences, and address them. Use your leadership and how your abilities have been given to you, that light inside of you, and let it shine into the lives of others. Whether that light is dim and it's barely shining, or whether it's bright, it's there. It's up to us to guide people into the presence of what they need. And we have the hands and we have the feet, so we are the ones who can make that change. So I just believe, be that change you want to see, and adapt in a way that others will be able to adapt. Show them, be that example. I know that's what I've had to do, and it has not been easy, but I'll tell you, the results of it has been very rewarding. It's been great to see how people have been able to adapt to these changes around us.
Kineta, that's really helpful.
They're embracing the
Thank
change.
you, Kineta.
I didn't expect it, but I'm surprised by it.
I'd love to just pick up on that, what you just said about the giving, and maybe also as a leader, it's important to ask for help, to not pretend anymore that you know the answers, but you let like other perspectives be heard, because in complexity you need as many perspectives as you can get. So giving, but then also receiving help, not trying to fix everything yourself. And there's also a strong experience I had this year. Like, people started to ask for help, to ask for advice, and that was okay. They dropped this facade of knowing, of having the plan.
Final part, Eureka, do you want to do any final comments or
point though?
Yes.
Gary?
Yeah, let me just start one thing that Kineta brought up. It's an interesting point because she is adapting, but going, I'm going to say outside the norm, the system. I tried to do the same thing. Salvation Army, Red Cross, all the big institutions. We're not accepting any donations right now for clothing because of coronavirus. So they're saying it potentially contaminated clothing. And I'm saying there's people out there who need this stuff.
Yeah.
How do we get the institutions to come around
So,
your way of getting that done?
That's a good point. Very good point. And he's right. I will say this. We connected with organizations that are on the ground. Okay. So we found an organization that actually goes to the veterans, they go to the homeless shelters. We partnered with them. We provided the tangible items they distribute. Literally, they are the hands and feet out there on the grounds. So to be honest with you, there are organizations that are on the ground serving, that are still feeding, that are still providing, a space for people to be warm and to have shelter and to have food. So we found organizations through our Catholic mission group. We found another organization through the veterans group, and we actually put those items in their hands. Their teams. My son is on a basketball team, and the team put out a flyer. We want to support so many families for Thanksgiving. We donated the items to the team. The team distributed. We actually delivered bags and set them at their doors. It's, I know it's just, it can be a little, I don't know if I want to do that. But when you find the organization that's safely doing it, you can supply that need. So I just believe we had to find ways, and we're going to have to work a little harder. It's not going to be as easy, but we can find ways to do what our hearts desires. Yeah.
All right, folks. Thank you, Kineta. Thank you, everybody. Charlie, Todd, I'm going to pass it back to you because we are at the end here.
So soon? Can't we have like another half an hour?
I have all these questions.
I feel like we're just warmed up.
I can't get it. There's no way.
Going, right.
I think, again, so this is the second of the conversations we had today. And as expected, it went in a different direction, another rich direction for everyone. And I think the amazing perspectives, wisdom, and ideas from this group, I truly appreciate all of you taking some time out of your day to share with us. I feel richer for the community. I have no facade of knowing here. I want to learn from you guys, and I really enjoy just all the perspectives that have come in today. And I hope we can continue these conversations And that those of you who joined us online live today, or if you're catching this on the replay, will also add your voice to this conversation. So to that end, I would ask if you're coming across us on Facebook or YouTube, that you post your ideas and questions in the chat underneath. We'd love to hear from you. I'm sure everybody on this call is going to go in and check on those to see if anybody's said anything about their remarks. And I would also ask that if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channels, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, and please share this if you think someone would find some value, some comfort, some ideas, or some fun innovation, or even the idea for a funny mask from Geary. We really appreciate all of your interactions. We are really just trying to raise a conversation here around how we can all be better moving forward. So I think we've made some good steps towards that today. Thank you again for joining, and we will see you soon with some more programming on catalyzing the future. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks everybody.